مساء الفل الكل بيتفرجوا علينا أو بيسمعونا في حلقة جديدة من Giving Back. This episode is going to be in English. It's our very first episode out of Egypt, specifically here in Dubai. And in this episode, we have with us Rory Mcloughlin, a film director and the founder of Like Minds. How are you doing, Rory?
I'm good, thank you.
It's a pleasure having you with us.
Yeah, cheers.
And I'm personally very excited, to be rolling out more or the beginning of our episodes here, not from Egypt and from the region, which is just very important for us because we want to make sure that we're shedding, the light on the industry in the region because all this, all these different experiences and, learnings from everyone here in the region, I'm pretty sure is going to benefit a lot of people who are looking and not just doing things in their own country and with, different directors, producers, not working just in their local country anymore. They're working across, different countries in our region. It's just very important to have this conversation just to make sure that, all those collective experiences help give as much knowledge as possible to everyone who wants to start out and grow in the region.
Totally.
So can you just give us briefly a quick idea about how you started out in this career and how you made your way through it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't say I had a very clear career path to get to this stage, right? And I think that the film industry is the kind of thing where, people have gone through high school and then university and into a career in the film industry. But then a lot of us have had something else different and then gone into the film industry, right? So, growing up, I was making little home films with some friends, kind of like the CKY style or Jackass kind of style films, right? Then I had forgotten about that for years. I'd played in different bands, putting on different music events and things like that. And so I always had that kind of creative aspect to myself. But my previous career was in insurance, a safe kind of industry to get into. Long story short, I end up in Bahrain. My parents are there. Work my way through some contacts there and end up in Jordan. And starting an online magazine there called My Secret Jordan. That's now finished. And went from there back to Bahrain and worked for a group called Elements Productions. And the reason why I got that connection through Elements is, weirdly enough, while I was in Bahrain initially, I'd played the role as a film director in a music video. And like looking back on that was hilarious. I can't even remember the name of the artist. Apparently he was big at the time. And then while working for Elements, met a great mentor of mine, Omar Halal, director from Egypt, most of you would know. And him and Barash, Barash is an AD here in Dubai, now EP for Bold Films. And they both set me up with Boomtown Productions, Shane Martin, the EP there. And that's how I got involved in serious film production. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty interesting journey and how, everything and all your hustle led to you having your beginnings in this industry. And then you said you got involved over here with Boomtown. Yeah. And can you tell us more about that? Because Boomtown over here is not just, I wouldn't just call it, a production company, but I would call it also sort of like a school where you learn a lot. So you started out, you were still not very experienced in your beginnings, and then you became involved with them. So can you tell us more about this period?
Boomtown Productions, you could call them an institution of Dubai, right? If you look at any of the production houses here in Dubai, majority of the influential people that are working there have spent their time at Boomtown, for sure, right? And the way that the EP Shane Martin works is, if you've got a dream, like a career dream aspiration, then make it known within the group, within the crew, the company. but then you have to make it happen yourself. He'll give you that space to grow and learn, and you've got to deliver for sure. But it's not like, oh, you're just a production manager and that's all that you do. You know, if you want to become a director or a DP or an editor or an art director or whatever you want to do, then follow that dream, and Shane will support you in doing that. But like I said, you got to perform.
Okay, so your role there was a production manager, and
initially,
how did it actually like grow? Like tell me more about that process, you know, like till you actually became a director.
Yeah. I mean, my experience in professional film production up to that point was quite lower level, simple content, you know, almost not necessarily a self shooter. I didn't really have experience with camera operating. But up until that point, I didn't have that TVC level of production, right? So coming into it, I didn't really know what the role of a director was, or a DP, or a producer. You know, to me, it was just like, that's film production, and you wear all of those hats. Now, learning, getting that experience, I was able to realize, okay, I like being creative. I like coming up with concepts. I like researching and being excited about film. Okay, how can I apply that to filmmaking? Well, the path to becoming a director is the right path for me, you know. So in doing that, it's all on me to find out what that path is. So as Boomtown gets RFPs, then I'm the one who's becoming the creative lead on putting those proposals and things together. Or if there's a brief that comes in and an agency doesn't necessarily have a large budget for an international director, well, then I'm the first choice, first in line as in-house director, right? So that's how the opportunities grew. It's not like I was a production manager and then suddenly my role as a director. No, it changed over time to becoming the in-house creative and director.
That's a very, very exciting, you know, like way to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that not a lot of people get that kind of experience. So it's very refreshing to learn that this is the way Boomtown actually work and operate.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that part. So
I don't feel like I'm alone in that though. I see my peers that are doing the same sort of thing. I mean, let's talk about, say, great director Omar Abbas. He too had done his time at Boomtown, in-house editor, wanted to become a director. It was his time to move on. And now look at his work, it's fantastic, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nile at Deja Vu, amazing. His work is just like each time getting better and better and better. Mm-hmm. And we're all, you know, we've done our time in-house. We're not necessarily following, going through film school and then going straight into a role as director, or a more common route is being a creative director or ECD at an agency and then becoming a director.
Mm-hmm.
That's one career route. And then I feel like the more refined route is going in-house through an actual production house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different, you know, like routes for people to go and become a director out of. And it's, you know, always very educating to hear about everyone's journey and how they made it there. And to me, that's very important because I want to make sure that everybody that is just, you know, like watching this and learning more about it is just to make sure that there's no set way you can, you know, find your way through the most interesting, you know, path. You can be an independent, you can work through a production house, you can, you know, like work as a creative in an agency. You can, I mean, be an actor and just, you know, like get experience from set, being an actor or a model. Then you would say you want to delve into directing yourself. So it's always very educating to hear about everyone's journey. This is something, for example, that we don't have in Egypt. Like there's no in-house director. Like that does not work out. Like you're either freelance or you were working at an agency for some time and then you just decided that you want to transition into becoming a director. And even then, like a lot of directors that came off out of being creatives, they always say that we stopped being creatives 100% when it comes to that front, because if I still work on my own creatives while I'm a director, a lot of the agencies, the creatives in the agencies, they would look at me as a competitor. And I want them to just look at me and just separate that right now. I'm focusing on the directing side of business.
Sure.
So yeah, so thank you.
I think that's an interesting perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you ask any director, you would never come across a brief from an agency that is just good to go. You know, director always has to add their input, their vision into the treatment, right? Their approach to making the film. But a director comes with years of experience of knowing how a film works, what's its most effective use, does the concept make sense? And sometimes on paper it might make sense, but through our years of experience as directors, we know if it's going to work or not, right? And maybe there are other influential aspects. For instance, budget. That's always the problem, right? And through our years of experience as directors, we understand, oh, okay, well, there's this massive part to this film that's not necessary, for instance. And we could do that in a much cheaper way. And through our input that way, we can help. But what I'm trying to get at is all of that can also come out through our creative input to elevating the film to the next level, right? So it's interesting that the creators and the ECDs see a director's input as a threat. That, I mean, it's a total collaboration. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, but like the small part that might have been missaid from my side was that no, they don't contribute as they work direct with clients on the creatives. No, they can put definitely their creative aspects once they get the creative from the creative director, and this is when they work on their treatment and they input their creativity. But they stop going direct to brands or associating themselves with an agency because at that point that separation just makes it confusing for a lot of agencies. So that's the part that I meant. But I completely get the point that you just said about, you know, that collaboration and that creative aspect is always very important to have, because, you know, like it's a team play kind of thing. So you've witnessed productions and in, you know, like previous roles other than a director before getting into becoming a director. And when you're watching things, it's, you know, you don't realize the full details of everything that becoming a director entails till you become a director yourself, and everyone is looking at you and asking you, so what should I do now? So tell me about your first directing experience and what you wish to know before your first day on set. Like one thing that you wish that you know.
Good question. I wish that I knew to surround myself with people who knew more about what they're doing than I do, right? Because initially I thought that as the director, I just need workers to work and to make my vision come true, right? So when I say in that collaboration, it's not just looking at, say, for instance, a DP and saying, you do your job to make it look good. No, talk to them about your vision. Talk to them about the sound design, about the art direction, the cast. Because, say, for instance, your DP hasn't just arrived in that position either on their own. You know, they've spent time on film sets and understood how to make films. You know, they're a specialist in for photography, right? But they also have all of this experience in filmmaking. Talk to the art director about wardrobe. You know, talk to them about color palettes. Talk to the sound engineer about the music, about the sound in general, the sound design. And then they will start giving you ideas as well to collaborate on. People like to feel like they're involved in the film, you know.
So what project would you consider that was your breakthrough project that made people start noticing you and trusting you more as a director?
Yeah. One of my biggest... it's funny to use the term career defining. I don't necessarily think it's career defining because it set me up, but it hasn't defined me as a director,
yes.
right? Is a series for Abu Dhabi Tourism, TCA, called Your Extraordinary Story, which is through M&C Saatchi. That was a massive project. And I think we made something like 5 masthead films, plus another one which was separate as a tourism film for medical tourism, and then something like 20 pre-roll ads, and then 10 360 films, all to do with this campaign, right? Now, when I first did the first set of masthead films, surrounded myself with a great DP, Elias Trad, a great AD, Jad Sabi, a great producer, Tanya, and all of this team, Tanya Abu Dade, all of this team, I felt a little bit out of my depth, and I could lean on, and they were there to support me all the way through, you know? And so we created these films, and they were heavy on sound design in the beginning because we'd start with all these quick cuts, and then this beautiful music track all the way through. And then that set a format for how we did the rest of the series, you know? And say, for instance, when it came to the 360 campaign, I had no experience in 360 filming, but the agency and the client had faith in me because we'd done this successful campaign to get to there. So I learnt that it's not just me having faith in my team, but earning that trust and faith from others to have that in you as well.
Awesome. And how long did it take from when you started out till you reached that project? Like, talk more about, you know, like the time it takes for you to hustle till you get there.
Yeah, I mean, that was a few years till I got to that point. And that was a real... Before that, my biggest project was a project called Emiratuna, which is our UAE for GMC. And that was like a road trip film around the UAE with a couple of Emirati guys talking about the history, getting to know their history. And so that was my biggest film up to that point. I didn't have anything in my reel that showed that I was capable of this, right? But the agency and the client had faith in me, and I delivered.
Awesome. So what makes one a good storyteller?
Good question. There are a couple of aspects to that, I believe. You're either a natural storyteller and understand that everybody's got a story to tell, and you can make any story interesting if it's told in a captivating way. And then there's also the tried and true method of storytelling that we've been able to learn over the years, you know, whether that's the hero's journey or I've gone blank, we have to cut that bit. Okay. But there are these different styles of storytelling, right? So I believe a good story is one that people can watch and relate to and have an emotive connection to, and an excellent story should influence or inspire you.
Okay, so when you look back at your very first treatment, how did that look like?
Well, what's interesting is that I was writing proposals, right? And there is a difference between a proposal and a treatment. So I'd had some experience in terms of writing approach, general approach, and then like the cinematic style, sound design. But that was more of the company's approach to making this film for this RFP. My first treatment was specifically for Your Extraordinary Story for Abu Dhabi, right? I remember freaking out. Like absolutely freaking out, because it was such a huge task, and the brief from the agency was quite clear, and I was used to writing that actual creative approach. Now they've got their creative approach. So what am I doing? What am I adding?
What are you adding to it? Yeah.
And that was a whole learning process in itself of how do I elevate their concept and how do I learn this language to explain what my approach is. I think that is one of the biggest roles of a director, is to actually explain what your thoughts and approach is. It's almost like you have to learn this new language. And you can't use vague words like dynamic. We will use this dynamic approach. It doesn't explain anything. You got to explain, why are you using this piece of music specifically? Why are you using this camera language specifically? And how does that relate to the film? How does it relate to the messaging? And how will it make the film more engaging? So over time, I've learned to write treatments. And it's not just like the written aspect, it's also the pictures, the layout, the view. Because when a client and agency look at a treatment, they're not reading it at all. They're getting an impression from this treatment, which is also what we're doing when making a film. It's about making an impression for that brand.
Okay, you keep on referencing that Abu Dhabi project, so I think it was a project that, as you said, it just set you out there. It just made you get noticed. So, and this is a very local client, and you're not from this region, and you don't speak Arabic, for example. So when we talk about possibly this specific project, how did you navigate that? And also, generally speaking, being in this region, and a lot of clients could, they could be international, but there are also local clients. How are you able to manage that?
Good question. I mean, with that campaign specifically, it was all just visual storytelling and then a beautiful VO at the end, right? So there wasn't any, say for instance, need for an Arabic interpretation of that. However, there was some experience to understand the sensibilities of the culture, right? The films were set up into different themes, and one of them was Abu Dhabi culture. So we're also we're selling Abu Dhabi on an international stage, trying to make it enticing and intriguing through this theme of an extraordinary experience, an extraordinary story. So to understand that and understand global markets, what are they looking for? What are they intrigued about? And also from my experience here, what am I intrigued about Emirati culture? And to build that intrigue to say, well, actually come to Abu Dhabi, experience it and understand it. That was my approach for that campaign. However, I've also had campaigns where it is all like Arabic scripted, right? Again, it goes back to surrounding yourself with the right team, the right crew. Having an Arabic script writer, having an AD who understands my style of comedy and approach, but also understands the timing of comedy as well to get that. I mean, even I would go one extra, having the DOP for my work is also in Arabic is Jad Zabi. I mean, one of my best friends. I love working with Jad, and his brother, Ali, as the AD. Excellent group to work with, So that's my approach, is to surround yourself with people who actually are from the region, understand the culture, and aren't just yes men as well. They will push back and give guidance.
Okay, so you've worked for about 9 years as a full-timer, and then you transitioned to being freelance. Can you tell me more about that transition? Because I can't imagine it being easy, being, making sure that something comes in at the end of each month while, being freelance. You're not certain when, projects are going to be coming in.
Yep. All of my adult life, up until that point, I'd been employed, salary, either end of the week, fortnightly or monthly, right? And then to go freelance on my own, and for the first month or two, maybe there's no work, and you know, you're sitting at home twiddling your fingers, worried, feeling anxiety. Am I good enough? You know, it is terrifying for sure, you know, to not have that security of a salary. And then when the money comes in, then you need to treat your work yourself as a business. You can't just be like, wow, I made it, I've got all of this money. You need to think, I need to spread this out, because who knows when the next paycheck is going to come. And maybe I'm busy, but when is that paycheck actually going to arrive? And that is a big frustration for a lot of people here, you know, is getting paid on time. And I think that puts a lot of people off going freelance, because being in-house, you do have that security of getting that salary on time.
So on the note of what you said, because it makes you doubt yourself, how do you deal with the imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome? Tough one. Good question, though. Sometimes I go back and rewatch older stuff of mine, and I'm either inspired by that, and I think, oh, actually, that was a really cool film, you know? Like I did this film for Yas Marina Circuit, and it's one of my favorite films I've ever made. Sound design is fantastic. The coloring is fantastic. The style in which we shot it, you know, it's so inspiring to me. It reaffirms that, okay, I have some skill that I can share, you know? And then I can go back to, say, for instance, earlier pieces of work like the GMC series I did, and think, I've come a long way since a project like that. Even though that was successful, I've come a long way as a director in that sense. So that's how I try to beat that. I also look at my treatments, and I love working on a treatment, right? Because even if I don't win the project, I feel like I have already envisioned what that would look like.
Got it. But how do you silence the noise when, you know, you look at your work, you feel that you've come a long way, you feel that you're progressing, and you feel that you have some really good projects, but it's just a phase where a lot of work is not coming in. You know, haven't had work for the past 3 months, and it's frustrating. So how do you deal with that, being a freelancer, and it just makes you have all these thoughts? So how do you silence that noise?
That's, like, again, it's tough, right? Surround yourself with people, like-minded people. You know, like, I have some friends in the industry here who I feel that I can be vulnerable with and tell them how I feel, and they can relate to how I feel also. I think having people that can relate to it, rather than people that are just like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, it's unfortunate what you're going through. For people to turn around and say, yeah, I also feel the same. And having that time to be able to relate to people, it just makes you feel like you're not alone in that process. And just surrounding yourself with like-minded people in that sense.
Awesome. So on the note of that, like, in a pretty saturated and overcrowded market with a lot of competition, pretty good talents for, you know, like brands, agencies, production houses to pick from, how do you brand and position yourself to stand out and make people notice you and, you know, pick you for projects?
Another great question. Now, this has been a huge learning curve for myself. That is, even now, something that I'm starting to realize, a new approach, right? As in-house, work would come to me. I didn't have to market myself because of the company, and so I would be getting projects that way. When I went freelance, I was of the understanding, and a lot of people had said to me, I need to reach out and network with production houses to be on their roster, on their radar. Then they will put me forward for briefs that come in. Now I've come to the realization that even though all of the production houses know me and my work, it's actually the creative directors and the ECDs, the creatives at the agencies that I really need to be networking with. I need to be on their radar, because even though you could say that it's saturated, it is a very small community here. I mean, there's probably about 20 directors at the same level of me living in Dubai, you know? And we're all competing, but what's frustrating is that you get creatives at the agencies who look at a reel and say, he hasn't shot a blue car before. He hasn't shot this brand or this type of laundry detergent before, or hasn't shot a tourism campaign in Kauain. They get so specific and so pedantic over a reel, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's silly.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a very interesting point because like you show that you're capable on other type of projects, but if you didn't do this one project, like there's always, like a start for everything.
Yeah.
And if the criteria is to pick one that did the same exact type of project before every single time, so how are there going to be new people that are doing, like these type of projects and would grow and do even more creative work? So it always just like makes me wonder, like, how can that be ever a credible criteria when, like you're just measuring it by the same exact type of projects and trying to make sure that they have the same exact type of project in the portfolio. So so it's an interesting point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I see creative work coming out around the world, right? And there's some resources that I wanted to share where to get that work, right? And the work that is coming out around the world, it's always fresh, it's always evolving and it's new, right? And we always see that the region, from an advertising perspective, keeps coming up with these awards that they keep winning for most creative agencies and stuff. But a lot of the films that come out of the region, I mean, I'm going to say they're a bit boring, to be honest. Like, I don't feel inspired by a lot of the work that's coming out of the region. How many times can we do a car brand go into a bakery to pick up a cake, right? Let's expand. Let's do something different and new. Let's create stories. Let's create drama. Let's create comedy, Let's stop focusing on car films that are feature-led. We're so bored and tired of it, right? So what if it's got electric windows and CarPlay, right? What feeling does that car give you? And I'm a director. Why am I having to fight for this? ECDs and creative directors and copywriters and art directors should be fighting for more creative concepts.
Yeah. So in the note of that, you said that there are about like 20 directors in Dubai that are at a close level to where you are, and you guys are competing together. You guys are competitors, but are you guys also friends?
Big
like,
time.
Do you hang out together?
Yeah.
Do you talk about your problems together?
Yeah.
How does that go?
Yeah. Some of them are some of my best friends. And, when I was talking about earlier, finding that support network of people, to be vulnerable about yourself, and they too are all in that same pool, but also to talk to them about, well, what are you working on? What are you excited about? Omar Abbas, I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite pieces of work is for LG with, it's called Changing Spaces, right? And in it, these two poets, they're trying to poetically one-up each other. Now, initially, I was inspired by an Omar Halal film for an ice cream brand. I've forgotten the name of it, but Baskin Robbins. And those two guys are trying to one-up each other. So I was inspired by that. And when I ran the concept past Omar, he gave me extra insight into that. I also, both Omar Halal and Omar Abbas, right? I don't feel like directors here are gatekeepers. I think we all want to create great films, and we all want to support each other because it helps support the scene and get us bigger and better briefs as well, right? And so, I often will reach out to different directors. Hey, what do you think of this concept? And people will come to me as well, sharing their work. How could it be better? I think it's better for us as an industry.
Awesome. So tell me more on that note. Like, what are your go-to learning outlets about film, and how do you just improve your learning curve?
Good question. So there's outlets, and then I also use some of those outlets as resources for my treatments as well. So one of the first ones, one of the main ones I've been using for a long time is Shot Deck. Shot Deck is a series of screen grabs from cinematic films and they're now starting to get into TV series as well. You can type in specifically what you're looking for, you know, from camera angle to number of people in the shot, time of day.
Have you tried Flim?
No.
Flim AI? Give that a shot as well.
Okay.
Because, yeah, like they can even help you on that note if you want a specific mood that is based on color.
Yeah.
So they narrow everything down
Yeah.
with color, that just specific color palette.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You can build the color palette.
Yeah.
Exactly. The next one is frame set. That's something I've just come across recently, and more relevant because it's commercials orientated. Now, both Shot Deck Frame Set is a subscription, but I would recommend more so Frame Set. It's really helped me find specific shots for commercials, right? iCandy. Have you used iCandy before?
No.
iCandy.com. Now it's spelled EYCNDY.com. It's a resource for different camera language techniques. What does a dolly zoom look like? What does a time lapse look like? What is a top-down shot? And it has these GIFs that you can then take and put into your treatment to say, well, this is the tracking shot, type of tracking shot I want to use. Because when you're talking about camera language, often a client has got no idea why you're doing that. Okay, agencies will, but to have an actual moving resource in your treatment to show that camera language, huge help. Shots.net, which is associated with Source Creative. A lot of the older school directors and filmmakers will be more aware of Shots.net because of Shots, the magazine, the actual print. And Source Creative is also a subscription where you can upload your work, but it's a database of the biggest database of actual work. And again, you can type in looking for references for campaigns, right? And that's always the case, right? Can you find a reference for your approach? Have you seen someone do your idea before? So frustrating, right? But I get it because people need to see. They need to understand.
But on that like specific note, you have a vision in your head and you're pretty sure you saw that reference before somewhere, but you can't remember that specific reference. It can be not just in a commercial, it could be of a film, it could be in a music video, it could be in something like that, but you're pretty sure that what clicked with you, the best way that you think you can treat this is something that you saw somewhere. How do you eventually find it? Or if you didn't, how are you able to make someone else imagine it?
So, I mean, you spend hours researching, and again, it goes back to that network. Reach out to people you know who have the same familiar mindset. Ask other directors, because they've probably come across either a similar brief or that same film. Hey, do you remember da-da-da-da-da? And people aren't going to be like, no, I'm not going to help you. Yeah, they want to be involved too, right? Director researchers, you know, some of them have this massive library of references from the different treatments that they've gone through as well themselves. You know, like even after I left Boomtown, Manu at Boomtown is one of my go-to guys where I describe something and he'll hit me back. I love him for that. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Manu.
Awesome. Okay, so you decided to create Like Minds. Can you tell me more about it and why you thought about creating it and what Like Minds offers the community exactly?
Like Minds started off selfishly for me as a way to bridge the gap between agencies, creative agencies, and the film industry. When we work on a project together, there's these great bonds that are made, right? Everyone's friends, everyone's working together collaboratively on a project, on the set, and then once the project's over, then those kind of friendships dissipate a bit, right? But what I wanted to do was to build those networks with the creatives, okay? And so I started Like Minds, which was a kind of a very social networking, but like an event, a social event for people to come together and share, you know, like-minded experiences. And initially it was very specific to myself to build those networks. As time has gone on, it's seems to be more film production orientated. It's probably about 10 to 15% agency, and the rest is film production, right? But now it's grown into this massive network where filmmakers are coming and networking with people and creating so much business, right? I thought I knew most of the key players in the film industry before starting Like Minds. Now every month, I'm meeting other filmmakers that I thought, oh, okay, I'm meeting another sound designer or another location manager. And I thought, well, I don't need to meet normal people. But then you have them in your database and you can ask them or talk to them, share with them. I feel like I've got this massive database now. We've got 900 members here in Dubai, right, of filmmakers and creators that are a part of Like Minds. So I love the community that we've made, because it's not just business, it's also a community. You know, specifically, you know, last month with the situation with Palestine, I wanted to create a safe space for people to come together so that you know, they can share, talking about what they're experiencing, and with other like-minded people from the industry, so that they're not at home just like doom scrolling through the situation. They can actually share it with other like-minded people.
So what would you say are, it could be one project, could be multiple, but the projects that inspired you a lot to want to pursue a career in film?
Good question. I can't say that there was a specific film, but I first got into filmmaking because I was watching a lot of Vice content, right? They were kind of the leaders at the time of making content, and they ran ahead before realizing how to actually monetize it, which is great. It's just like other social networks, you know, Facebook and Instagram didn't know how to monetize it first. It was just about exponential growth. And so to see this like alternative storytelling by people that I could relate to, younger kids talking about subjects that I was interested in, that's what inspired me to get into filmmaking. As time has gone on, there have been films that have come out that have inspired me to become the film director that I am now. I can't even remember all of the adverts, but you know, some of them from New Zealand where I grew up have inspired me to become a director, right? There's a series by Lotto, Powerball, where they tell the emotive stories where people have won the lotto and how that's been life-changing in that moment, that to capture that moment with that realization. That's inspired me so much to actually, I would love to create a series of films to capture that moment, you know? So I'd recommend looking up the series by Lotto. There's Pop's Gift, there's Lost, and the Armoured Truck, Lotto, New Zealand. The Birdman by Volvo. I mean, I watched that. It's a masterpiece in storytelling, right? I would love to use that. And I often use that as a reference in my work. The Encounter by Leica, that's set in Oman. That's a recorded story between a photographer and a Bedouin guy there. It's just beautiful storytelling. And I would say the Pennzoil films, Joyride series, in terms of sound design, the angles, the way that that's made, that got me really excited into action storytelling. And you can see in my work, I reference that.
I see. Awesome. So tell me more, you know, our podcast is called Giving Back. Tell me what giving back means to you.
Yeah. I feel that as a director, we've spent the time and earned our role, earned our name as a director, right? It's not like you just walk out of university and suddenly you're a director. Your peers need to recognize you, okay? Once you get to that level of authority, and you have a bit of responsibility as well, right? To help the industry grow. Because as the industry comes up and grows, you've been given opportunities to get to where you are, and so you need to give opportunities to others as well, right? So there are things that I do in terms of as a director to ensure opportunities. Like, I love to have intern opportunities on set. I often like to look at the top-down view of who we've got as the crew and question production. Can we have more women involved in the shoot? Or go into the creative. Does the creative need to be a boy, or can it be a girl? You know, just to create opportunities, equal opportunities, you know. There are other things that I'm doing. For instance, there's the Colours Institute, which is a new institute that's developing here, based out of Media City. And that's linked up with ECOL, which is an international institution. And they are a design institution, and I'll be working with the film production, helping people learn about film production from basics, right? And there's also the Dubai Media Council. They've got a lot of development and exciting things that is happening there. Workshops, being able to workshop concepts to grow the industry. For instance, like paid internships, rebates, helping with the film commission, things like that. I'm also a part of the production forum, and we've got a survey coming out soon. So guys, keep your eyes peeled for that. This survey, by capturing all of the information as to where the industry is at right now, we can then have data to go to the Film Commission, Dubai Media Council, so on, to say, this is where the industry feels they are at, and this is where we can focus on helping develop the industry. So when you see the survey, please guys get involved. It's really going to help us. And then the last one is through Dev at Milkshake Media. He's running some after-school programs and also like a winter school summer camp kind of a thing for filmmakers, for kids. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm helping out with, and I encourage others to step up and jump in, get involved, because our industry isn't going to grow unless we do it ourselves. Yeah,
I totally agree. So a question that we always like to, end every episode with is, what would you say to 18-year-old Rory, about the journey so far? Buckle
up. Because it's going to be a tough ride.
Awesome.
And don't change anything to get to where I am now. Don't go to film school. Carry on and get that experience, get that life experience. Like I said, I was in insurance before I got into this, and I can apply those unique skills that I learnt working for a company to what I do now. I understand that it's a business, what we do in commercial advertising, and so to know that it's a business, it's got to run it as a profit, and it's got to promote a business. It's got to have a point of communication.
Awesome. This was, a very exciting first episode coming out of, the region, not from Egypt. So thank you so much for your time, Rory. It was a pleasure having you. And I look forward to us, always as a community, making sure that the culture of giving back is being spread further. So thank you so much for, sharing all your journey with us, the experiences that you went through, and the different resources that help you every day to become a better filmmaker. So thank you so much for your time. And is there any final words that you would love to say?
I'd love to say that I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man.
I think what you're doing is cool, because I know that you're not doing this for the clout, you're not doing this for the money, you're doing this for a selfless reason. So I see you, I recognize you.
Thank you so much. And I also echo that when I talk about what you're doing at Like Minds, even though you're saying it started out selfishly, but then if you didn't see it fulfilling that purpose in the start, you could have just, pulled the plug and said that I don't want to do it. But you saw the value that it's presenting to other people, and you just decided that, okay, I'll just keep on doing that if it's helping people. So I echo every word that you said. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate everything that you're doing for the community, and I appreciate having you with us today.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much. All right, and Cheers. Cut.